the Dialed In Angling podcast presented by OnX Fish, Fish USA, Ski-Doo, Runnings, Minnesota DNR, Strike Master, 13 Fishing, L&M Fleet Supply, and DeWalt. Well, welcome back to this week's podcast. We got a great show in store for you. First of all, I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. Hopefully everybody had a Merry Christmas, a safe and happy holiday season. I can't believe it's New Year's. The year 2025 has just flown by like it always does. Ton of fishing trips. It absolutely pinched myself as far as the amount of trips that I was able to go on this year for Dialed In Angling, and then just also on my own. Super grateful this season to be able to fish with my family, my son, a lot of my friends. Just what a great year. I can't ask for much more. As a person that loves to fish and hunt and just truly enjoy the outdoors, my passion has always been the outdoors. I've been able to do everything that I wanted to do in 2025. I look forward to 2026. Hopefully you will have a safe and happy new year, and hopefully you've got some fishing adventures on the books for this New Year's season. Now let's get into the podcast. I want to talk a little bit this week. I've got some great fishing reports coming in, as always. Some reports from the Dakotas, Ottertail County. I've got Brainerd Lakes area. Lake of the Woods. I got a little bit of Mille Lacs reports for you. If you haven't checked out the Mille Lacs episode of Dialed In Angling that just dropped on YouTube yesterday, I encourage you to check that out as well. That was sort of a run and gun, meat and potatoes, sort of daytime Mille Lacs bite that I love doing. I've been doing it for 20 years with guide customers, and we show you exactly how we do it and how we get dialed in on Mille Lacs fishing. So we want you to check that out. In addition to all these great fishing reports, I want to talk a little bit about the year-end recap, some of the highlights, some of the trips that I went on this year that I really enjoyed doing, some of the lake trout fishing that if you listen to the Dialed In Angling podcast, we talked about. I want to talk about some fishing trips that I have coming up here. I know I want to get up to Canada. I want to do some filming of lake trout up there. We just got done filming a panfish episode in western Minnesota on one of the border waters. I'm not going to spill out the exact location, but I want to talk about these giant bluegills that we were catching in this next episode. You're going to want to tune your DVR into FanDuel Network or KSTC channel 45 and set it on Dialed In Angling, because we got a really cool panfish episode. Particularly if you're into bluegills, you're going to want to DVR this episode of Dialed In Angling. It'll drop next week, next Monday. You're going to want to see this. I'm excited to talk about it because I'm a person that's really, really passionate for panfish, but particularly rare panfish like giant bluegills. And so let's get right into it. I want to talk a little bit about fishing on Mille Lacs, first of all, maybe some of the fishing that I've done. We're going to cut, and after the break, I'm going to have my son on, and he's going to talk to a little bit, and we're going to have a conversation about what we filmed over on the border waters, and we'll leave it at that as far as location. But these giant bluegills, I know he is passionate about these big bluegills, and just talking about this episode gets me excited. It jogs my memory about how cool it was. I want to get back as quickly as possible. Even though we only filmed a few days ago, with the holidays in between, it feels like it was a lifetime ago almost, and I can't wait to get back there. And so I want to chat a little bit with him about that, some of the techniques we used, what we had to do to strategize to get on top of these giant fish, and they are true specimens of giant bluegills. So I'm going to take a minute to talk a little bit about Mille Lacs fishing, first of all, because I've spent a ton of time out here or out there the last few weeks. With the holiday season, I always do a ton of guide trips around that time frame, and Mille Lacs continues to be very, very good. The only thing I've encountered this week versus, let's say, last week, it seems like the numbers of big fish were down a little bit this week compared to last week. And I think part of that had to do with the fronts that we're moving through. We still caught a ton of fish. I know I had guide customers that caught well over 100 walleyes each group. That includes all these small fish, because that's sort of the storyline this year is all of these small walleyes that are like 9 to 11 inches. And then you get some decent ones mixed in, and then you get some perch, and it makes for a good day on the ice. And, even though the big fish numbers were down this week compared to last week when I was out there, the fishing was still really good. And that's a great thing to see. Last year at this time, the perch were starting to show up, and we were starting to get that story about perch, but the walleye fishing was really, really tough. There was so much bait in the lake. It seemed very difficult to get on top of consistent walleye fishing last year. That hasn't been the case so far on Mille Lacs. And so I've been excited. The guide trips have been excellent. If you're heading to Mille Lacs Lake, all I can say is make sure you get the dead stick rods out. Shiner minnows are working great on your dead stick lines or your rattle reels. They're starting to drive. There's a little bit of traffic, especially after this last cold snap here, right around the new year. Driving vehicles is going to get more and more prevalent. So make sure you're calling ahead to the resorts. Most resorts at this point are allowing ATV, UTV, snowmobile traffic. But some resorts are starting to let a few vehicles out, light vehicle traffic and that sort of thing. I would imagine by next week's podcast, it'll be all systems go. There's going to be a lot of people driving all over the lake. The lake seems to be very consistent with ice. But like I said, check ahead, make sure you're calling to the resorts and staying on those stake paths. But if you're coming out there, anything gold during the day has been dominating, lights out, Juicy Lucy, VMC color, anything gold spoons, silver spoons, blue chrome jigging wraps, gold jigging wraps, anything in those real natural metallic colors are producing fish out there. So again, it's been a really good bite. I know a lot of people for the New Year's holiday weekend. I know a lot of my friends, a lot of my buddies are heading up to Red Lake. That continues to be on fire, although it seems like I've gotten some reports this week where it's slowed down a little bit compared to what it had been, but still very, very good fishing. So I know it's going to be like rush hour traffic heading north in through Killier, into Washkish. All those areas are going to be jam-packed with ice anglers this weekend. So my advice to you, if you're heading to Red Lake, stay away from the crowds. Get out there on those resort roads, but then stay away from the crowds. I think most, if not all, resorts on Red Lake are allowing vehicle traffic plus wheelhouses. I know some friends that were up there doing a little ice camping in their otters as well. Same thing. If you can get away from the crowds, you're going to catch fish. It seems like it sounds like the dead sticks are really producing all day long, but then the jigging bite has been turning on. And then, of course, just the noise factor, keeping the noise factor down. On those days, we noticed it on Mille Lacs, on Red, everywhere I've been fishing this winter so far. On the days that they're not 100% fired up and they're sort of in a negative or neutral mood, the noise factor is like the X factor. And it's the biggest difference between catching fish and not catching fish. If you get into those time periods where it's like not peak feeding periods, or you get into a daytime pattern where, let's say, a day like we had, the other day where the morning high was the high temperature for the day and the temps were dropping throughout the day and the front was moving in and that sort of thing. And you get those bite windows throughout the day where the fish are feeding. They don't care about the noise. They're feeding. They're aggressive. They're coming in. You can walk around. You can hole hop. You can drill holes. You can use your forward-facing sonar. You can sharp shoot fish. Doesn't matter. However, as soon as that cold front hits and those fish are sort of in a negative or neutral mood, when you get past the peak feeding windows, sit in your shelter, sit in your otter, sit in your portable, your wheelhouse, quit making noise, turn the generator off, even turn the live scopes off, turn the forward-facing sonar units off, and just use your 2D sonar, put your Markham down, and you're going to catch more fish. Less noise, not just from walking around, but also sonar noise is going to help you catch more fish on those negative or neutral days. So make a mental note of that. If you're listening to the podcast, noise, not just walking around, but sonar noise plays a huge, huge factor in catching fish. We saw it on Mille Lacs. I've seen it on red. I know a lot of other people are venturing out on other lakes, such as Winnebagosh. Been talking to other anglers that are heading out on Leech Lake. I know some of the resorts on Leech are starting to allow a little bit of vehicle traffic. I'd be cautious. Obviously, I've been around and in and around the Leech area this week, and I did see some wheelhouses out, like on Walker Bay. I didn't see anybody driving, but I know some other resorts are allowing a little bit of vehicle traffic now towards New Year's. And a lot of reports coming in where it's 14, 16, 17 plus inches of ice. So obviously use caution if you're dragging a wheelhouse, and go through a resort, because if you get any sort of weather, they're going to help you out. I'm a huge fan of going through resorts, going through guides at different destinations, as far as getting safe routes out and safe routes established to get to good fishing. If you kind of DIY it and head out of a public access that's not plowed, if that baby heaves up or you get a crack or something where there's not the infrastructure to have a bridge, that's where you get into trouble. And so I highly recommend going through the resort. The other place is Lake of the Woods. Lake of the Woods has continued to be on fire. The bite seems red hot. The resorts up there are definitely allowing vehicle traffic with wheelhouses. I have some friends heading up to Lake of the Woods this week, and they're going to fish into the weekend. Matter of fact, I have friends heading up there right now. Talk to them on the phone. It sounds like that bite continues to be red hot during the day, into the morning and evening. Obviously, at night it slows down on Lake of the Woods, but it's still fun to be out there, enjoying the new year, bringing in the New Year season, doing an adventure trip like ice fishing. You know, as I get older, and really it's been a long time, I always try to pick some sort of adventure trip around ice, that circles around ice fishing right around the new year. There's lots of options now, especially this year, where you can drive, and they're allowing vehicle traffic on a lot of our lakes in northern Minnesota. It even sounds like out in the Dakotas right now, they're still using wheels, not track machines out in Devil's Lake. Out in South Dakota, you can get around anywhere right now. So take advantage of that. Even if you're not comfortable driving right now, if you've got a Ranger, if you got a four-wheeler, a snowmobile, it's nice to be able to get around, because inevitably here in January, we're probably going to get dumped on with snow. So you're going to have to use track machines. You're going to have to use snowmobiles like skidoos, which is fine. But if you want to get the entire family out and get out and enjoy it right now, where you still can just, drive a machine out there, or take your vehicle if resorts are allowing, it's so nice to be able to do so. Okay. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about our adventure out in Western Minnesota. I'll say Western Minnesota, and we'll leave it at that. I want you guys to tune into Dialed In Angling, but I want to talk about the bluegills that we're catching, how we went about finding these fish, catching this fish, because quite frankly, it's a body of water that I had fished in the past, but I hadn't ice fished it. I had never ice fished it. But I've been hearing about the giant bluegills in this location. And so we went out there for Dialed In Angling, basically had a day to pre-fish. And I would say a day and a couple hours to pre-fish, because we got out there in the afternoon and said, hey, let's go fishing, and caught some fish. And the day we had to pre-fish, in typical Western Minnesota fashion, the wind blew 40 miles an hour. And so it's really tough trying to pre-fish on a day like that, where you want to get out, explore, use the forward-facing sonar, get on top of panfish, just see what this lake has to offer. And we did it. We'll tell you about it. Stay tuned. We got more Dialed In Angling coming your way. OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Quickly filter lakes by species, then select trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, or high stocking effort to find the fish you are after in the size and the numbers you are trying to catch. Download from the App Store today to get research tools for the serious anglers and beginners alike, giving you the data to target the right lakes and the confidence to get there. Use tools like recent imagery, fishing hotspot data, or the best-in-class weather features that call out current wind, weather, barometer, moon phase, majors and minors, along with precip and more. OnX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you'd never known existed. Download OnX Fish Midwest today, the app that is changing the game on ice and open water.
Runnings Home, Farm, and Outdoor stores are celebrating 78 years, serving 90 local communities across the Upper Midwest, the Northeast, and America's Heartland. Runnings has everything you and your family need for your home, on the farm, and in the outdoors. Lawn and garden, hardware, farm and ranch supplies, sporting goods, housewares, snacks, and everything for your pets. Go to runnings.com to find one of the 90 locations near you or shop online anytime at runnings.com. Runnings, your home, farm, and outdoor store.
There is nothing quite like Minnesota winter. Whether you want to try ice fishing, ice skating, or ice boating, make sure you know the risks and how to play safe on the ice. Measure ice thickness frequently and never go out alone. Always wear a life jacket or float coat and have ice picks readily accessible in case you fall through. Playing on the ice can be fun, but it's never 100% safe. Learn how you could play safe before you go out. Safety is always in season. A message from the Minnesota DNR.
With the holiday season behind us, if you didn't get the gift you wanted for Christmas or this last holiday season, look no further. You're going to check out fishusa.com. All of the best fishing brands under one roof. Check out fishusa.com for all of your angling needs. Well, we are back, and I've got my son Robbie sitting next to me. Him and I ventured out to western Minnesota this past week. We did some fishing and some seeking of giant bluegills, and we were able to accomplish that. We caught some really, really nice fish out there, and I would say mission accomplished. How about you, Rob?
Yeah, it was super fun. I think we totally did what we set out to do, and we got those fish.
I think the fun part about setting up fishing trips is like geeking out over it. I say it all the time. You and I geek out over OnX Fish maps. We look at data, statistics of maps, the map themselves. When we decided to do this destination, actually, I kind of plan out, dialed in angling season, at the beginning of the year, kind of destinations that I want to go to, that I want to explore. Some of them are ones that you and I have talked about it personally. Some of them are episodes that you and I have actually fished. But this one in particular, I had heard about these great big bluegills, and I had actually caught them for myself in open water several years back, but I never ice fished it. And so going in blind, I was a little nervous because we didn't have a ton of time to pre-fish. And the reason being we really didn't have much time to pre-fish is we had the holiday season, right? We had Christmas coming up, and, we had to kind of shoot dialed in angling. We have videographers that have to be at their family Christmases, and with travel time in between, it makes things difficult. So it was like, okay, we basically have a day to pre-fish. We kind of looked over the entire map. We called a few friends. We got a little bit of intel from a few folks. Didn't get a lot of knowledge, but got enough to kind of set us in the right direction. And yeah, the cool part about a fishing trip is like, geeking out over all this stuff, right? And then having a game plan in mind and then setting out and actually accomplishing it. Because, regardless of filming dialed in angling, this was a fun trip for you and I just to go explore, look and have fun. And I think I speak for both of us when I say, one of the funnest parts of fishing for both of us is finding fish, right? We both love exploring, finding fish. That's why we both love forward-facing sonar. We like experimenting with different tackle, different baits, which figuring them out. But I think that first step of any fishing trip that you go on is finding them first. I always tell customers, if they're going to a destination, you need to find fish first. And so that starts with sitting on your computer, sitting on your phone, checking out websites or apps like OnX Fish, checking out maps, scrolling over information from resorts, guides, bait shops, anything you can, Facebook groups, forums. I always kind of, scrub that information first. And then once you get through that information, then you start looking for things on the map that are key points of interest, even laying waypoints down prior to the search. I mean, we do that for fishing trips all over where we go. And so this was no different. We sort of tackled it with that mindset. And you and I talked about it a lot. When doing that, and as the gears are turning, we're packing gear that will help us in that search. And so in the search, and when you're looking for fish like that, you need some tools, right? A map, a good app like OnX Fish, but hard tools like Markham underwater cameras. The destination we went was fairly clear, and so we knew underwater cameras are a great tool, especially for searching out fish in shallow situations, in weedy situations. Even though we have forward-facing sonar, sometimes it's hard to tell the forest from the trees, in the sense where we saw the panfish, but we need to know what they are, what they're feeding on, how they're reacting to our baits. So a Markham underwater camera was one of the first tools we packed. We also packed our forward-facing sonars. We packed our 2D sonars. We had our otter sled. We had our sonar sled. I mean, we packed everything we could to be 100% all in on the hunt for these fish in the location we were going. Once you can accomplish that, then you can start breaking down, okay, what techniques are we going to use? How are the fish reacting to our baits? Are they reacting to some sort of rattle bait or call bait, or are they only wanting to feed on small plastics? Are they feeding on minnows? What are they feeding on? How are we going to break this down in the sense of what we're using? Well, when you're fishing as a team, like Robbie and I were doing, it was like a 1-2 punch. I started out, I think, using a spoon, right?
Yep.
And you just had a small tungsten, maybe a plastic. We kind of went through that whole progression, live bait progressions, and then we started landing on that. But it didn't take us long to find fish. Usually that's like the biggest part of getting to an area, is like not settling until you find fish. But we found fish quite quickly.
Yeah, it was it's pretty simple. We just drove out and just checked out the first little point that we found, and there's fish around there, and like, hey, let's give it a try.
Yeah, it never happens that way for me. I always say, like, I get out to a spot and I was like, I see these really good, like, textbook spots where you'd think, hey, fish are going to be loaded here. And you get there and it's like either been fished out and there's holes everywhere, or the fish aren't there. In this case, it was neither one. There wasn't a single hole drilled where we were. And then also there was a ton of fish there. And so what was cool about the spot we were on is there was structure adjacent to where we were fishing. I wouldn't say we set up right on the point, but we were adjacent to the structure that the fish were cruising to in the evenings. And so that first evening we got out, we were like, dang, there's a bunch of fish around here. They were very spooky. You'll see that if you watch the episode, like a lot of panfish have been this season in a ton of different locations with not a ton of snow on the ice. The panfish have been spooky everywhere. This has been a theme all season long. Well, and not even just really for panfish. I touched on it earlier in this podcast. Even the walleyes on Mille Lacs, on red, they get spooky at times. And part of it is the noise factor, where you don't have a ton of ice insulating your noise. We have virtually no snow, although this last little snowstorm, especially in southern Minnesota, got some snow. But us here in northern Minnesota, we didn't get much snow. Western Minnesota, they probably got a little bit more this last round, but that helps with that insulation factor. And all I'm saying is, like, when we got out there, we could tell the fish were spooky. I mean, we drilled holes. We watched a guy drive with a sled. I wish we could have filmed this on Dialed and Angling, but we were sitting in the otter catching fish. We had caught some really giant bluegills at this point. We set up the otter, and we literally only had a couple hours to pre-fish before, our main pre-fishing day was the next day. And so we only had a couple hours to fish, but we took advantage of it because we got there early and we got out there. But what's cool is this dude drove by in a 4-wheeler and he was pulling a sled, and he was it sounded like he was on top of us, but he was a long ways away. And we watched a wave of fish come through that had to be several hundred crappies and bluegills that came through as we were fishing. And they were on a mission to get the heck out of there. And we thought it sounded like the guy was driving right by our otter. he was 300 or 400 yards away. And so that told me right there that these fish are extremely spooky. We're going to have to be careful with our ice cleats. We're going to have to be careful dragging our otters out. And so we sort of had a game plan, and that's all part of pre-fishing, right? You wouldn't have known that by not sitting out there. And so part of pre-fishing is like trying to figure them out. So we thought, well, if they're that spooky, we're just going to have to hunker down, but we're also going to have to get out super early in the morning so we can get set up, get settled in, and then let the fish come back to us. It was a lot like deer hunting, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. Those fish were so spooky, especially when they would come in and you'd crunch your feet or move your boots. Then they'd kind of stop, or they'd even spook away just from moving your feet. And it was crazy to me.
It was. And Robbie and I had ice cleats on, which we, probably could have taken them off, but it was super slick at that point. So I was like, when you're moving around, trying to film and trying to do stuff, it just becomes dangerous taking your ice cleats off. But like Robbie said, you'd literally move your foot inside the otter just over a little bit when fish were directly underneath us, and they'd spook off to the side. And so we had to be really careful of not moving buckets around, not throwing scoops in the bottom of our otter, not moving our graphs around too much. The cool part about pan fishing with an underwater camera, like we had set up, we had a Pursuit HD. It's that handheld camera you can record on there. It has little SD card slot so you can record footage. We like recording underwater footage, not just for dialed and angling, but we just like it because we're fish geeks, right? And so I had the camera down there. It's super clear water. What's cool about the underwater camera is you can see all of this stuff unfold. I highly recommend, even if you have forward-facing sonar, that you still break out your cameras. If you don't have a good a good HD camera like the Pursuit, I highly recommend going to get one. It's worth its weight in gold in situations like this, where you can tell the mood of the fish, you can see what they're reacting to, how they're coming into your baits. Had we not had that down there, it would have been really hard to decipher, where these fish were at as far as feeding. We had very few fish that came in and just wailed on it. Even if they came in a little bit fast, most of them would come in fast, but they would just sort of slow down and analyze that bait. And so by having that underwater camera down there, we could really see what they wanted, whether it was color profile, whether it was plastics, any of that stuff. We could see that as it was unfolding, and it shortened that learning curve. And what's cool about that Pursuit HD is, man, in really low light conditions, you can see for a long time period. So like we got out there with only a few hours in the evening left to spare, and we had that camera down till right up at dark. It was well past, that peak feeding window in the evening, and we could see just fine with that thing. And it was cool to see all of the invertebrates in the water column. It was cool to see like some of the vegetation on the bottom, to get into those areas where maybe the vegetation was a little bit thicker. Just seriously worth its weight in gold to put an underwater camera in our scouting package. I almost always have that little Pursuit HD camera with me at all times. It's just nice for scouting. It's nice. It's got that battery system that's in there lasts a really long time. So even if you have it in your little fishing kit, it's just always nice to have. And of course, if you're kind of fish dorks like we are, it's fun to record on there. It's cool to see those strikes, to play them back, to see how the fish reacted. Because sometimes in your mind, you think a fish is reacting a certain way. When you play that back, you're like, wow, that was a little different than I remembered. And so it's just nice to have that camera. But what was cool is we learned that we needed to hunker down. We knew immediately that we had to keep the noise to a minimum. So the next day, even scouting, the winds were just howling, right? It was 30 to 40 mile an hour winds, but we got out there early. We hit the ice about an hour before dawn. We equated it, like I said, to deer hunting. It's kind of like walking to your deer stand. You blow off all the deer, an hour before sunrise. But what was also cool and how I relate it to deer hunting, it seems like if you walk out in the dark to your deer stand, the deer are less spooked than they are if you do during the day. just the way it is, right? The fish are kind of like that. We were looking at them with forward-facing sonar, and we were making tons of noise dragging that otter sled, and they were less spooky at night. And I think it has to do a lot with that clear water that we were fishing. When they can see it, I don't know. It's like they just were way calmer at night when we drove out. I thought we'd blow them out of there, and I'd scan around, and there was no fish. They were there. We were drilling, and they didn't want us drilling right on top of them in the dark, but they didn't blow out of there like I had anticipated. And then when the sun came up, we started catching them. And, obviously in scouting, that day of scouting, we ended up eliminating a lot more water than we did finding new water, because it was so cold and so windy, and the fish were spooking so bad that if we set up in a new spot, it like took forever for the fish to come back. So it was like, well, we need to get in an area where there's enough fish around here that they are going to come back. Because the lake we fished doesn't have a ton of structure. It's primarily basin. And it was just one of those lakes that if they disappear into that basin and they move somewhere, it's not like they're coming back, because they have everywhere to feed. There's a lot of cover. It's shallow water. There was a ton of vegetation. And so it was just all part of that strategy. But part of that scouting day, that eliminating water with air quotes, like I was talking about, it's all part of scouting. It truly is. I do it guiding all the time. It's like, well, let's go back to that original area that we found, set up there. We know there's a lot of fish in the area, and we still started really refining our search. Like, we got the forward facing sonar out, and we're like, okay, we know they're spooking, and they're spooking really badly. So if we're going to get into an area where there's fish and a chance for fish to come back, we need to go back to what we found on day one. That's adjacent to structure, right? But still in that shallow basin area. And then we need to get in an area where there's lots of pods of fish around us. And then just get set up, be quiet, go back to the deer hunting mentality, and just wait for those fish to come to us. And man, they came to us. And we caught some absolute giants on camera. If you are into big bluegills, you're going to want to check out this episode of Dialed in Angling that will drop this weekend on FanDuel, on KSTC, channel 45, 7:30 in the morning this Saturday, or check it out on next Monday on YouTube. It is going to be epic. If you're a panfish angler, if you're a bluegill enthusiast, if you're just an ice angler that wants to see really giant panfish, you're going to want to check this out, because Robbie and I set out on a goal to catch giant bluegills, and we accomplished that goal 1,000%. Rob, what was your favorite part of this outing? I know, there was an anticipation leading up to any fishing trip, but I know this one because I know you love bluegill fishing. But what was your favorite part about this fishing trip in general, or what were you surprised about?
My favorite part by far was just exploring a new body of water, like checking out different spots, be like, okay, this spot's okay. And other spots be like, wow, there's a lot of fish in this area. I think that's really cool, especially when you get into a spot that's good that you scouted even before you were on the water, just looking at your phone, looking at Onyx, stuff like that. And what really surprised me was just the true size of some of these bluegills. They have so much forage that they're just so built. It was super cool.
Yeah, it's always amazing when you get the genetics like there is in the lake that we were fishing. The overall size structure of these fish, they're just built differently. You hit the nail right on the head, or hit the hammer right on the head. The overall size of these bluegills is much different than a lot of other lakes you fish, and it has to do with genetics. And I strongly encourage anyone listening to this podcast, anyone that's going to watch Dialed in Angling, to put these big giant fish back into the lake, because what happens is these big bulls and these big fish, these giant strains of these fish, these are the ones that hold the genetics for the future of this fishery. And by releasing those big bluegills, you're ensuring good genetics moving forward. These big bulls that protect the beds, they're a special specimen. And so if you're heading to this lake, you'll see in Dialed in Angling, we caught a ton of perch in this episode. We caught a bunch of crappies. We even caught some walleyes. We caught some bluegills. If you're out there to harvest a few fish in this location, and normally I give out the locations, but I want people to check out this episode of Dialed In Angling. But if you're going to this destination and you decide, this is a lake for you that you want to explore and that you want to harvest a few fish, great. Robbie and I are all about keeping fish. Even on Dialed In Angling, most of the time I'm throwing the fish back. I'm not keeping fish because I only keep a few fish if I'm going to eat them that night or within a couple days, because we get to fish all the time. So I'm not putting down the fact that if anybody wants to have the family fish fry or likes keeping fish, I just strongly encourage, if you're going to keep fish, practice selective harvest. Throw these giant bluegills back, keep some of the smaller ones, throw these giant crappies back, keep some of the small ones, keep a few perch, keep a couple walleyes, just kind of mix it up a little bit. Having a good mix of walleyes, a couple perch, a couple small gills, maybe a crappie or two mixed in. You and I did that when we were out there. We kept a few small ones. When we were pre-fishing, I'm like, Rob, let's keep a few small fish for a fish fry. That's exactly what we did. But we did not keep these giant bluegills. Those genetics are so special. I just hope that people that watch Dialed In Angling and that learn the location that we're at and learn to get dialed in like we did on these bluegills, that they release these fish because they are truly special. They're built differently than any other gills you'll see. There's only select locations that I know of in northern Minnesota. There's a few spots in the Dakotas, and then this location where I can consistently catch gills like that. And yes, there's areas where you can catch big gills, but consistently catch gills and we caught them very consistently. And the size structure of some of these fish is mind-blowing how big they are. And I'll tease out the size structure that they are because we measured them on camera. We had 10, 10 and a half, 10 and 3/4, 10 and a half, 10 and 3/4, 11, pushing over 11-inch fish. Those are monsters. And so those caliber of bluegills deserved to be released back into the water. And I'm hoping people that are watching this are going to go out and enjoy it and release those fish just like we did. Keep a few small ones. I was blown away just the numbers of fish that we caught. There were certain areas where there was plenty of eater size fish. We kept a handful just to have a fish fry. Aaron, our camera guy, our producer that came out there, I know he enjoyed the fish fry. We ran into town, went to the local grocery store, got some coleslaw, got some sides to go with the fish, had a little fish fry at fish camp. Super fun to do. Love doing fish fries. Robbie has grown up with fish fries as a staple in our household. So I'm not bashing the fish fry whatsoever, but I'm just saying we kept a few fish. We could have even kept more. We caught a lot of fish that were keeper size, but we caught so many that were so big. I mean, at that first day when we were scouting, it was hard to get ones that you could keep.
Yeah, it was wild, the amount of bigger fish that we were pulling through the ice. And it was just so consistent of catching big fish. Usually, like with crappies, you have to sort through all the small ones and you get one decent one. Well, like these bluegills, you consistently pull up these giant fish and it's just mind-blowing.
Well, I was pumped at the crappies as well. I think there was a good population of crappies. On the show itself, we didn't get any real giant crappies, but we got decent ones. But pre-fishing, we caught some hog crappies, some real slabs that we threw back. We kept a couple small crappies, like I said, kept a couple perch. I love eating perch. And they were like the right eating perch too. They weren't just these monster slobs. They were like these 9, 10, 11-inch perch, perfect eating size perch. Kept a couple of those. Threw the walleyes back, but it was really fun fishing. Great episode. If you're into bluegills or just into ice fishing, you're gonna want to check this episode out. That about wraps up our talk as far as teasing out this episode. I don't want to give away any more because I want people to check out Dialed In Angling. Hey, I want you to stay tuned. We got a good list of fishing reports coming in. I know Randon Olson's checking in from the Ottertail area. He's pulling his houses out. He's got customers in his houses all weekend long through the holiday season. Trig Roach from TR Guide Service. He's checking in from the Brainerd Lakes area. I know he's been running around with some buddies doing an online ice fishing tournament. We've got Brian B. Sather from Lake of the Woods. Of course, Marcus Quam out in the Glacial Lakes area in Webster, South Dakota. I heard they're absolutely pounding them out there, so you're going to want to check out his report. A ton of good input. Josh Bullivant from Leech Lake. A lot of great fishing reports pouring in for the New Year's. So if you're looking for a great New Year's destination, check out these fishing reports. Also check out the businesses that are giving us intel. It's coming from some of the best sources in the industry. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to follow up with some fishing reports and then wrap this baby up. Stay tuned. We got more Dialed In Angling coming your way. The cold months are rolling in, but that doesn't mean the adventure slows down. There's only one way to make the most of winter with the 2026 Ski-Doo lineup. Whether you're heading deep into your favorite fishing spots or carving your own path off the grid, Ski-Doo is built to take you there. And there's a reason Ski-Doo has been the best-selling snowmobile brand for more than 2 decades. Proven, reliable, world-class performance. Winter moves fast. If you want it, get it.
It's that time of year again, anglers. Winter is here, and L&M Fleet Supply is ready to make this your best season ever. Head into your favorite L&M Fleet Supply location across northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, or Michigan's UP, and browse the extensive collection of DeWalt tools and accessories, all guaranteed tough. Cut through the thickest ice with DeWalt's 20-volt drill. Brighten your setup with the assortment of 20-volt portable LED lights. And stay entertained with the DeWalt Bluetooth 20-volt speaker. It's weather-resistant, rugged, and ready for any adventure. Check out DeWalt's guaranteed tough deals and more at L&M Fleet Supply. Together, they're the perfect match for all your ice fishing needs.
Hi, it's Marcus Quam here with Real Therapy Guide Service out of Webster, South Dakota. Our ice conditions have seemed to hold steady with a good probably 12 to 13 inches. I'm seeing pretty consistent. We're not seeing anything differential at all. The fishing report is, I would say, pretty good with mostly perch for me, but I have heard of a few walleye bites in the mornings and the evenings, but I have mostly been on perch. Despite the weather conditions kind of up and down, I would say overall it's been a good start to the season and look forward to running in full force here.
Hi, this is Josh Bullivant from Trapper's Landing Lodge here on beautiful Leech Lake. This is your current ice conditions for the Leech Lake area. Currently on our end of the lake, we are seeing 17 to 19 inches of ice. There are some ice heaves to be aware of around the Diamond Point area, Pelican Island area. So please use caution in those areas if you're going to travel off the roads. ATV, snowmobile traffic is a must to get out there. There is very little snow on the lake, so you can travel around in your vehicles. Just make sure you're checking ahead, looking ahead for any of those ice heaves. Over in the Walker Bay area, we're getting a little bit less ice. Over that way, we're seeing anywhere between 11 to 13 inches of ice on that end of the lake. There are people starting to venture out there and put out their hard-sided ice houses with their UTVs. For the fishing bite, it still continues to be an evening walleye bite here out on Leech Lake. We're seeing majority of the walleyes slid out a little bit deeper this weekend in that 18 to 22 foot of water. Look for the bottoms of the break lines. If you can find rocks, sand, even better. For those walleye set lines with your bigger rainbow minnow, or fishing fairly aggressively, jigging wraps or ripping wraps have been working fairly well to get that reaction bite here out on Leech Lake. Panfish, perch bite continues to be good out in that 20 to 25 foot range. Find the sand mud transitions and you'll find the perch. So from all of us here on beautiful Leech Lake, hope you all have a happy new year.
Hey guys, Brandon Olson here with Lockjaw Guide Service with an Otter Tail County fishing report. Ice conditions continue to be amazing up here, 12 to 15 inches on most area lakes. There is a little bit of heaving here and there, but it's really not too bad. Snow-wise either, travel is still very easy wherever you want to go. Fishing side of things, the walleye bite has continued to be fairly good. We're seeing anywhere from 2 to 6 fish a night on most houses. And the pattern for that is mostly that deep weed edge in 12 to 18 feet, but we're also getting a few fish up in that 8 to 12 feet of water inside the weed beds. On the panfish side of things, that has been on fire. We had a few houses that pushed that 400 mark in a couple days of fishing with great mixtures of crappies and bluegills. We're seeing most of those fish in that 15 to 20 feet of water, and they're biting on everything from waxworms to pancakes. So we have Awesome conditions. Otter Tail County is open for business. If you guys want to get out and fish with me, 218-640-0158. Otherwise, you can check us out at lockjawguideservice.com.
Hey, it's Brian the Beef Sather with the Lake of the Woods Fishing Report. Ice conditions on the lake are shaping up very nice across much of the lake. We're finding solid ice on the south shore, on the Rainy River, and up at the northwest angle. The walleye action and sauger action has definitely been showing up early morning, early evening, the low light periods. The classic 1-2 punch that we have going is the jig and spoon, or try the nano wrap. The nano wrap has been on fire for me this last few days. And then also a dead stick. Colors, your golds, your pinks, your glow reds, and any bright pattern right now seems to be doing really well on the big pond. Travel safe, fish smart, and hey, enjoy the big pond. We look forward to seeing you up here on Lake of the Woods.
Trig Roach with TR Guide Service in the Brainerd Lakes area. Rental houses are out, walleyes are being caught, having our most productive bites in those peak feeding hours in that 18 to 23 foot of water range, using pink, white, and green jig and spoons tipped with minnow heads. Walleyes have been sliding out deeper during the day in a 20 to 32 foot of water. Panfish have been biting really good. Crappies are out in the basin using small jig and plastics and jig and spoons tipped with minnow heads to catch those. Bluegills are out in the shallower weed flats using small tungsten jigs with waxies and urlarvas to catch those. This is Trig Roach. We'll see you in the next one.
All right. Thanks once again to all the guides and contributors to Dialed In Angling podcast. It's been a great year. I'm super thankful for being able to fish and hunt and do everything I love doing in the outdoors, doing it with my son, Robbie, my dad, my uncles, my cousins, my son's friends, my friends, just everybody that is part of my life that, just super grateful to be able to do what I love doing day in and day out, and being able to make a living in the fishing industry, working as a guide for the past 25 years. And then, of course, being part of Dialed In Angling. It's been a great year. I appreciate each and every one of you tuning in to Dialed In Angling. Hopefully, you get some insight on the podcast. You get some insight from our guides, our contributors, and then, of course, from the TV show. We're continually putting out content to, showcase kind of how we go about tackling scenarios like you're going to watch this next week with these bluegills. Truly grateful for everybody tuning in, and hopefully it helps you, get connected and get dialed in with your family on your next ice fishing outing. So let's wrap this baby up. Happy New Year's to everybody. Hopefully you've got some trips planned for this new year. I know for me, I've got some trips coming up here, doing some night fishing trips planned. I've got some trips heading out lake trout fishing. I know I want to get up to Canada a couple times. We've got a great lineup of Dialed In Angling TV coming up the rest of the season. I know Yeti Fish Houses. I'm going to pick up my fish house here shortly. I can't wait to get that on the ice, get that all set up the way I want it with the TV systems and the underwater cameras and forward-facing sonar units. Every year that's always evolving and changing. I love fishing out of my Yeti. It is super fun. It's a great experience for my family. It's a great experience for my guide customers to be able to fish out of that in the comforts of that, especially as you get into January and February, where conditions can get extremely difficult to be outside. It's nice to be able to jump in the Yeti, at least at night, maybe run and gun during the day, or drag the otters out, move around a little bit during the daytime period when the fish aren't cruising, but then go back to the Yeti in the evening. I'm looking forward to some killer nights on the ice in that baby. So 2026 is upon us. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck fishing. Hopefully you got some great fishing adventures planned for the new year like we do. Stay tuned. We got some great Dialed In Angling episodes coming up for you. But this has been the Dialed In Angling podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach. We'll see you on the ice.